Good morning, everyone. Yeah, that was really cool and interesting. It's kind of addicting to like technology. Droid just got Instagram this week, and I've been taking pictures of everything since then. And yeah, so I bet when we go on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, we'll still see stuff about Easter around. But what does it really mean, and what's the importance? What's its significance for us? Well, first of all, it validates all that Jesus did. We saw all the miracles that those disciples were tweeting. He raised a man to life, he healed the sick, and all those miracles. It would have been sad if it just ended with him in the tomb, right? And all that he did, and he claimed to be the Messiah and everything. But if he remained dead, then that was it. That was a dead end. So him coming alive was the final thing that says that he really is the Messiah. Every single thing he did, and all the prophecies about him, it was really true. And another importance is it's just not life for Jesus, but it's also life for us. Like what Pastor Bernie said, we also will be resurrected one day. And in Romans 6:4-5, it says, "We were therefore buried with him through baptism into death, in order that, just as Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, we too may live a new life." And we will have a new life. So, since this is important, the resurrection, it's actually something that separates us Christians from others. I mean, some atheists even believe that Jesus was alive, he died, he was buried. But for us Christians, this is what sets us apart. We believe that Jesus Christ came alive again. He resurrected from the dead. And for me personally, when I found out, so today what we're going to talk about is the evidence of the resurrection, and that the proofs that it was true. And for me, when I learned about this, it's just something that strengthened my faith more. I mean, I always believed that Jesus raised from the dead, but just, learning about this. So, we're going to go through it today. So there are a lot of theories about what happened back then, and one of them was that the resurrection didn't really happen. It was just an invention of the disciples. Okay, so the first line of evidence is the difficulty of harmonizing the accounts. There were different view of the resurrection, and everyone has their own point of view. So when something happens, we're not going to tell this story the same, because we're all looking at it from our different lives and our different perspectives. And the resurrection was that too. The disciples all had their different view on it, and the witnesses have different views on it. So they told the story how they remembered it. If they made up the story, if the disciples made up this story that Jesus was resurrected, then everyone would stick to just one story, right? I don't know where I've heard this before, but imagine two little kids breaking a vase in the house, and their mom's gonna get mad, right? So they're gonna make up their story. Okay, this is what we're going to say. But those two kids are going to say exactly the same thing. But the resurrection, they didn't say the same things. It's from their own personal story. And then another line of evidence is the disciples. Their change in attitude. So at first, after the resurrection, they were really scared, and they were sad, what happened? And they were hiding. But it was a dramatic change. So from super scared to being super bold and just going out there and preaching the word. So what could cause that change? I mean, like, changing for us is hard, and it doesn't come easy, you know, and for like a dramatic change for that to happen, there must be something really big for like to convince them. And then it was a dramatic change, and then they died for it. If they made up a story, why would they die for it? If they know that it's a lie, then who would stick up to, like, you know, till the end for that? They risked their lives to preach about Jesus, and they never changed their mind about it. Even when they were persecuted, and, you know, even if they were threatened to be killed. And yep, so I mean, if you guys, will you stand up for a lie? I mean, no one would, like, if I'm gonna shoot you right now, tell me that Jesus, was he alive? I mean, it's, yeah, so you wouldn't fight for something that is not true. And another question is, what is their motive for lying or making up this story? Especially, like, you know, they were being persecuted and not everyone really believed them, so like they're not gaining anything from lying. A third evidence is that women were the primary witnesses. In that culture, women's testimony was not accepted. So if they were making up a story, they would want someone credible, right, as a source. I mean, if they're going to, like, make up a lie, they would want people to believe it. If they want people to believe it, why will they use, like, women as their sources, you know, as their witness? And they could have used, like, someone powerful or someone that people would believe, but they chose women. A fourth one is the change in thought about what the resurrection was. So no one expected a resurrection. Remember, like, during the Last Supper and stuff, and when Jesus was telling them, I have to go, they're like, no, you can't go. And yeah, so the disciples didn't really understand what the resurrection was. And even when they came to, like, the tomb and the body wasn't there, it's like, oh no, it's stolen, where is it? You know, they didn't actually think that Jesus came, you know, that he was alive, he resurrected. And yeah, so the disciples didn't really understand, like, what it was. They expected the resurrection, but, like, at the very end, and they didn't really think about Jesus being resurrected. And if they were making up a lie, like, if they were making up this story, what made them change their mind about that? And what made them realize that, yes, he really resurrected? Okay, and the fifth evidence is the conversion of people. So it wasn't just the disciples who changed their minds, but other people too, and thousands of people. So how can you make thousands of people convert and with a lie, you know? And they have a lot of witnesses that Jesus was alive, so that's the only way that, you know, you can gather, like, a lot of people to believe in this. And they didn't just convert, like, random people, but these were the skeptic people. These were the ones who didn't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. Like, some of them maybe were, like, were with, like, those who were shouting, crucify him, you know. But they changed their minds too, not just the disciples. You have, like, other people who changed their minds. So that's one theory that the disciples invented a story. Another theory is the stolen body theory, that someone took the body, that's why the tomb was empty. So a line of evidence for this is the Roman soldiers who were guarding this tomb. Okay, so these soldiers were trained to kill. They weren't just random, okay, guard this, you know. And for them, it's like, it's their profession, and they know that for them too, the punishment is death. If you, like, you know, fail to do your duty, you're going to die. So they're not taking this job lightly. They say that they fell asleep there while watching guard. I don't think so. They probably have shifts, or I don't know how it worked back then, but they took this job seriously. And thinking about how there was like chaos before his resurrection, and they know that a lot of people, even like the people like were expecting, oh, the disciples might steal the body and tell us that Jesus resurrected. So they were anticipating it. So they made sure like it was heavily guarded. And yeah, so these Roman soldiers, you can't just go past them and steal a body. And like another thing to consider is the tomb itself. There's like a big stone blocking it. It's like 2 tons. And it's not really like round back then. It's like more of a square. And it's, you know, just imagine pushing it with the Roman soldiers right there who are ready to kill you. And in the middle of the night or something, I mean, how are you going to do that? So there's the big stone, and once you've passed the soldiers and that big stone, inside the body is like wrapped. You know how they wrapped it back then? It's like 75 pounds of linen. Wow. So another like line of evidence there is that the linens were in the tomb. It was left there. If you were going to steal something, are you going to leave something behind? I mean, you're going to take all the evidence, right? And that's just like weird. Like, how is it? Why did they leave it there? If after you've passed the Roman soldiers and you've passed the big stone, I feel like you'll just hurry up and grab it and just run. But it was carefully laid there, all 75 pounds. And, yeah. And then, if the body was stolen, oh, yeah, that's it. So other theories are the wrong tomb theory. So they went to a wrong one, and oh, this one's empty. Well, first, if that was the case, they could have just produced the body. They could have just went to the real tomb and like, hey, stop it, Jesus is here, you got the wrong tomb. And another thing about this is Joseph of Arimathea. So he got the tomb for Jesus after he's a well-known person, and that means that like his property is well-known. So the place he chose to bury Jesus was like well-known to Jews and like all the people back then. So you couldn't really, there was like little doubt of, you know, choosing the wrong tomb. And then another theory is the hallucination theory. That there are 500 people who are witnesses to Jesus Christ being resurrected. And hallucinations are usually like individual and subjective, and they come from like within, like what you know already. So, like, just thinking about, like, just think about us here having a hallucination at the same time. Like, that's weird. And we're only 60 people here. There are 500 people back then. And hallucinations usually last for minutes, rarely hours. And they had it for 40 days. Jesus was with them for 40 days. So that's kind of a big hallucination. And I don't think hallucinations eat, or you can touch them, or you can talk to them. But Jesus ate, and he was touched, and he responded to questions. You know, you can talk to him and he answers back. And yeah, so those are like stuff, like evidence of the resurrection. And there are a lot more out there, and a lot more funny theories. It's just really cool to know that he really is resurrected, and that for us it's real too. Like, knowing that it's true. This is the first fruits. Like, it's a sign of what is to come to us. So we will also live again, and we will also have that new body, and it is possible. And we can be confident that God will win. So death is not the end.